Hello, welcome back to the Like a Dragon Ishin Deepest Dive. Part 3. All the rest of the game, the entirety of the game, could be spoiled for you in this very broadcast. Heed my warning. I'm Leo Vader, joined by 3 people who hopefully have a better grasp of the nuances of this story than I do. We got Michael Hyam.
Hi, what it do, baby?
We got Jacob Geller.
You have to be really sure that you've done everything before you do this next mission, Leo.
Thank you. And we've got Sarah Podzorski.
Honestly, the book was better, in my opinion.
Oh, here we go.
The history books.
Hey.
Yeah, were thoughts on that changed? Is it feeling pretty historically accurate?
No, well, up until this point, it was pretty, we were following some path, and then, the ending was just kind of actually, we think that the inner life of these 5 buddies is actually more interesting than whatever happened in history, and I disagree.
They went full Yakuza mode towards the end. They're like, oh shit, that's right. This is a Yakuza game. Here are the last chapters. Let me tell you, though, the last chapters of a Yakuza game are undefeated. They're the most beautiful, hot, sweaty men fighting for their fate, the fates of the universe. But, and Like a Dragon Ishin does not disappoint in that regard. It's just, when you're playing with history, things are a little different. So, but hey.
It does seem true. I mean, I say this having now only beat 2 of these games, but, it seems like they kind of start off with larger, more societal themes, and by the end they narrow down to no, the most important thing is what is in the hearts of these 5 dudes. It's we don't need to talk about the institutions.
It's just a bunch of dudes punching each other on a roof somewhere. And that's the Yakuza way.
I was gonna say, that's the Yakuza way.
What's better than that? I've took better notes this time on the story. As a first-time Deepest Dive host, I feel like I missed kind of going through the game more linearly, more breaking it down as it happens. And I'm going to try and be better about this all of a sudden in part 3. So I'm going to suddenly be going through the chapters in a more straightforward way. Because honestly, I found we had the fandom breakdowns, but the summaries that are online. But so much happens that I really found the need to put it in my own words to understand it. There's a lot of little intricacies going on here. But starting with Chapter 10, True Identities. And just feel free to interject when you have any thoughts about any part that I'm talking about. And we'll see how this goes. Inoue was killed. Finally... a member of the Shinsengumi has been killed. Okita thinks that you did it and springs a trap on you, so you have one of your many fights in Mukurogai. Kondo comes to the fight, Kondo, the big boss man, to bring you to a secret room where he unveils a big secret.
It's a huge secret. And at this point, you're
several big secrets.
I cannot believe that the ongoing subplot to this game is just cases of identity theft. I literally, because, they did it with Ryoma, and then they were like, guess what? You're not the only one, who's not who you say you are. It's everybody else has a fake name too.
No, it really, at this point, because when the game started, I was like, okay, the game is going to be about class. I think that's going to be the theme. And then at this point and beyond, I just had to be I think it's some commentary on identity. And I don't really know what it is, but my God, this game is obsessed with telling you that a character's name is actually someone else's name. It just happens so many times.
Yeah, in this case, it's Okita, Inoue, and Nagakura. All 3 of them are living under fake identities from people who used to be in the Shinsengumi and were killed.
That is true.
I wish I could say I was shocked, but after what's happened in the first half of the game, I was like, oh, okay.
Well, and there's the other big part of that conversation, which is that after 3 different people claimed that they were the assassin, we found out that it was indeed Inoue who we don't get any kind of climactic revenge on because he's just killed off screen.
He just kind of fizzles out there when he like finds out who the assassin is. I don't remember him like raging at all or like trying to enact any further revenge.
Yeah, I feel like
He's
at
just
that
kind of
point,
like, oh.
Yeah, I felt like it felt anticlimactic in the sense that it seems like there are bigger fish to fry after that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, in a way, you kind of feel like you're exhausted after chasing person after person, that it feels like everyone was in on it in a way. And then once that person kind of dies and you didn't exact that revenge, that you're like, oh, well, what do I do now with my life? And I think in the process that Ryoma had found other things to fight for. I think by this time he's embedded in the political drama that now and this comes back around towards the end where the vision that he was sold on by his father kind of does take precedence, even if it's not like overtly stated. It does feel like he starts to realize as he's more embedded in these organizations and interacting with the different people and kind of forming that Sacho alliance that we saw in the previous chapter, that I guess there are more important things to fight for than just simply getting revenge on my dad, because that's like a hollow. I think he realized that it feels kind of hollow that, just to get revenge. Maybe that's just me like reading too much into it, but it does kind of, the story does feel like it pushes you towards like, okay, Ryoma is starting to get it. He's starting to see the bigger picture and starting to care more about those things. And apparently he's in love with Oreo as well. So.
And also, related to that bigger picture, it's kind of like he's like, well, Inoue might have actually swung his sword, but there's someone else who told him to. And so then he's able to kind of redirect his energies that way.
Yeah, he does say specifically that he realizes that he just wants the truth about his father's death and does not want the revenge aspect, which is heroic.
Yeah. Wow. Look at the growth. Look at the growth.
Very noble. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think I guess this is the chapter where you see the three dudes who tried to assassinate the other dudes actually got killed by Inoue, and then Kondo pulls up and says, "Ooh, listen, I can fucking kill y'all right here." Oh, my bad.
It's a direct quote. It's not your fault.
I just got off doing stuff for Kind of Funny where it's just all bets are off. So I gotta bring myself back down. But he basically said, hey, I can kill y'all, or you can assume these identities and we can keep it moving. I don't know do y'all remember exactly how or why that went down, other than I think like overall what I remember is that Kondo just wanted to keep these people in place because they're extremely talented swordsmen who could uphold the Shinsengumi. So.
Yeah, I think he was basically like, it's a really bad look if at the very start of our organization we already have like 3 traitors, so we're just going to pretend that didn't happen.
Okay, yeah. That's as
Even though
much
they
as I read into it.
Nothing alike. The question is always like, had people met them before? There was one.
No one's got camera phones.
Photos exist. Yeah.
No one's got TikTok or Instagram, and no one's tweeting about people's identities. So who knows who's who?
One of the original guys that they replaced, I laughed so hard at because he looks like the Chad meme. Like he had like the strongest chin I had ever seen, and was like, oh, these guys look like way more intimidating than all the goofballs that replaced them.
Couple comments from the chat real quick. I'm a Biggie Boy says, kind of funny are godless heathens with sinner mouths.
That's true. Yeah, that is, I can confirm.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And Villain Mac posted it in the Deepest Dive doc for this, that this game asks us to relearn all our favorite characters' names and also have the main character take on a secret identity. And now we learn that most of the characters also have secret identities with more names that are hard to remember. I'd like to report a crime.
I don't know who anyone is anymore.
It's so much. It's already 15 main characters.
I know. And like some people still call Ryoma Hajime.
Right.
Throughout the rest of the story, some people call him Ryoma, his quote unquote real name. We still call him Kiryu for all intents and purposes.
And they switch between like first name and last names, but sometimes it'll be like Saito-san, sometimes it'll be Hajime-san, and then you have to know that for every single other character who has a case of stolen identity.
They got 6 names.
Insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
It seemed to be something that the writers were really interested in the lack of smartphones and what you could do with that. Horrible segue, but I forgot to say the one thing I was supposed to say, which is that there's a Deepest Dive on Resident Evil 4 remake going on right now. If you're so sad because this Deepest Dive is coming to an end, go hop on that damn one. Sarah's on it. She'll tell you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hop on it, damn it.
Yeah. And MinnMax patrons at the $5 tier get access to audio versions of all Deepest Dives, this one and that one included. Only $2 to submit a comment, $5 to get an audio feed to listen to on the go. Then we head to the Terradaya, because that's where you hear the, of course, other Ryoma is. Yeah. My one note on that raid is there was a part where you break through furniture to get to a new area, and more furniture falls through the ceiling, and you say, we've got to go another way, rather than just breaking it again.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have the thought when you heard that he was at the inn? I had a moment of like, is this Fight Club? Like, am I the other Ryoma? Because how could we be staying like in the same hotel and like never seen each other? But no, it was a different guy. This part has the part that I like a lot, where you sneak up behind. Is this the part where you tell Oreo to like get out of there? Yeah.
And then she immediately is like, the cops are here! Everybody run!
It's so fast. It's like, well, first you watch her take a bath, and then she gets up, and you're like, don't tell anyone. We're the cops, and we're here. And she just runs out in her towel, screaming.
And when you talk to her later about it, she says she would have risked her life for any guest. That's just her. How she operates.
I do not like how they shoehorned into this. And she was like, I just had to do it. I would have done it for you too. And it's like, but you haven't.
Right. Well, she says several things, because also then we find out she has a sick mom, and also she has been like collaborating with the fake Ryoma or whatever. So she has many motivations.
Right. Reporting on rumors to the loyalists, and was following you even.
Whatever gets you paid, girl. Like, listen, I'll respect it. I respect it.
Yeah, I mean,
weird that she also had a crush on you too, and she's like, I was stalking you, but I was being paid to do it, but I would have done it for free because I really like you. Was like the vibe I got from her.
We've all been there.
On that topic of these double lives, these not so fake lives, we'll jump ahead for just a second because it's going to keep coming up, and I think it's important for, again, trying to figure out what the game is saying about it. It was at the start of chapter 14 where Okita/Majima gives you that almost weirdly wise speech, like uncharacteristic feeling from him to me in that moment, about how when you're bemoaning your life being fake, you're hanging up the Saito Hajime hat. He basically says that the life was not fake. Like, what you did as that person was real, and same goes for Oreo. Like, there's that real you is very much within that fake identity.
This was like the where they make you go on a date with her, right?
Right. This is right around that time.
Because then they were like, you should go ask her out, bro.
Yeah. Okita, he like, where did this come from, man? He's all wise telling you like. Yeah,
and I guess it's probably part of the fact that Saito Hajime was like a real guy as well. And so I think it is partially explaining, like, you know, Ryoma's actions as Saito Hajime are also in the historical record, you know, if we're taking this game to be historical. And so they have to be like, no, that matters. I mean, people are going to write about you, even if you did not think that you were Saito Hajime. All these historians are going to.
Yeah.
Oh, but I think it's cute. I like it. I like it when Majima's character gets serious for just a moment. He's telling them, like, you know,
he has the capabilities. Yakuza 0 has proven that, like, he can be incredibly deep and insightful. He just chooses not to.
Yeah. And then Ryoma says back to him, he's like, oh, you're like a brother to me. You always had my back. Whatever. It's like, that's kind of not true, because you almost got killed twice by him, because you had to fight him, and he's probably one of the harder enemies to fight in the game. But nonetheless, he is your bro. And then Okita's like, I'm your brother. Don't say that.
How much
It's
precedent is there in the franchise for this level of friendship between these two characters, the Kiryu and Majima types?
Oh, this like especially in Kiwami 1, their friendship is really funny because the Majima Everywhere system, which is like he'll pop up at any point in the map and fight you, and it's like a whole side story to go along with it. And he's the type who's like, oh, I just want to fight you, Kiryu-chan, because I love you, and you're the only one who can match my energy. So I think they definitely have that sort of. It's never that serious though. I don't think Kiwami 1 ever takes itself too seriously between the two. Kiwami 2 is, I can't remember exactly, but Kiwami 2 does kind of reel back the kind of zaniness and the craziness of Majima to kind of rope back around to how he was in Zero. Just kind of like as an opportunity to reframe the character a little bit, because in the modern era there's a very different perception of him as he was compared to before the before times before Zero. But I always feel like that is, at least it's consistent with how we know those characters to be.
Mm-hmm. I would say they're the closest, right? Like out of all those other characters who are there, I feel like Kiryu and Majima have like the most history in the Yakuza franchise together. Yeah. Like I said, like the other ones are kind of like, maybe except Akiyama, they're kind of like a little more main character-y, like you play as them more. So yeah, definitely this is like there's precedent for them being like, there's always like a big like bro moment in Yakuza games where they're all like, they all come around and they're like, our hearts are strong and like we will fight for what we believe in. So
yeah, especially towards the end of 5 and the beginning of 6, they definitely revisit that theme. So you know, I love them.
I have 2 questions from this chapter. One, did anyone else think that Oreo was Atose's daughter? Because I like really thought that until it was, because then she was like, I have a sick mom, and I was like, your mom's like, right there. What are you
your mom's fine. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I just thought it was like a mom and daughter business.
I feel like they mentioned that like Oreo was like just like a part-time worker, like just like someone who was just like working. But yeah, I could totally see like mistaking them for being related.
That's what I thought that for a while too.
Also, your brother's not your brother, and your dad's not really your dad, right?
No.
Yeah, it's kind of a
talk about true identities.
Yeah. I mean, Kiryu canon is canon orphan, so they can't just start giving him real relationships.
But they want you to feel like he has a brother.
And then the other thing is, I just wrote this line down from this chapter, and I don't remember what the context is. You ought to try busting your own hump once in a while. Does anyone remember who said that?
Was that the main story?
I think it is.
Another cuss section to write down.
It's just so, it's like, I was just like, oh man, what good translation. And I truly don't remember what it's from.
Oh.
In chapter 11, The Great Gamble, we find out that night drinking you had with Katsura and Saigo ended up creating the Sacho alliance between the Satsuma and Choshu domains. And the line that I took down from that was, man, who would have thought that all it took to bury a generational grudge was a night out with the lads?
Yes.
Also, I have to say, for the Saigo dog part, I did actually find in my textbook a picture of a statue of Saigo, the Saigo, with a dog. Like this is actually like I genuinely found this when I was reading through it. Wow. It's canon.
Oh,
canon dog lover. So.
Oh,
canon to reality.
That's cute.
Wow, that's cool. What's going on here at the start of this chapter is that the second Ryoma, I forget if we know exactly who it is at this point. I think we just learned.
Oh, like the one who's taking your name, right?
You found out it was your brother. Like you had confirmation when your brother escapes. You see like his wound on his back.
Yeah.
Well, you do, and yet when you fight Izo later, he still says like, my brother's dead, and I'm like, are you dumb? Like,
he doesn't want to believe it.
Yeah,
he would rather think he's dead. It was I was like, yes. Well, obviously we know who it is, and then he still seemed like confused hours later.
That was exactly my confusion. Is I feel like we learned it, but I know that a while after we learned it, we still haven't learned it.
Yeah, it's like I'm 99% sure that that's who I think it is, but I'm not going to tell anyone. But
Anybody could have had
that.
that really distinct explosive scar on their back.
Let's eliminate every other person first, every other possibility.
But, that basket on his head, though, that really threw me off, man. You know what
I
I'm
had to
saying?
read up about that. Apparently they were like, they were the only ones who were allowed to go between checkpoints in Japan without papers.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd wear that basket on your head and like fake be a musician, and you were allowed to go between checkpoints, no issue, which seems like an issue to me. Like, seems like something that's really exploitable. But apparently the government did use them as spies.
Wow.
So yeah.
Real lore.
That's the history.
Interesting. And to me, it very much looked like I wondered if I'd accidentally put on a silly headgear in the menu.
Right.
The plan now that our second Ryoma, Takechi, is starting an uprising against the shogunate, is we're going to sneak into Edo and convince the shogun to abdicate to prevent war.
Mm-hmm.
Which was when I got like back on board for the story. That was like a really interesting... I guess it became more of a typical raid than I expected, of just running in and killing everybody, but the idea of like sneaking in to have a direct one-on-one with the shogun is really interesting.
Boy said 1v1 me, bro.
Yeah.
I like the conversation that you have with Kondo, where it's the kind of thing where it's like, that's crazy. So crazy it might just work. It's like it feels look, as someone who does not have a lot of historical knowledge, patently absurd, but hey,
It's a Kondo's document, right? That he passes along?
Yeah, it's like their proposed constitution, I guess you could call it, like their rules for like what they want the government to stand for. And I just want to say, like, this is not historically accurate. However, Tosa, the area, was in charge of mediating between the Sacho Alliance and the Shogun. So they've kind of just replaced Tosa as like a place with Ryoma in this situation, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this one got a little wild for me, especially when they started like rewriting it to like
I love
eliminate the class system and like bring about equality. I was like, did you know Kiryu just like fixed the government? Did you know Kiryu has eliminated classism? And he's brought about equality for all?
You just realize you have the opportunity. You're like, we could just add stuff to this while you're on the boat.
It was so, I mean, I loved that whole scene. I loved how they couldn't read it, and so they had to get that guy to read it because it was written in like fancy cursive, basically, which, look, I can't read most fancy cursives. But that guy comes and he's like, what are you having me read? This is illegal. They're going to kill you. And they're like, wait. We can add whatever we want to it. And he's like, okay, I guess I'm on board.
That shit was
there's
so
just like
funny.
an asterisk on it too, like see backside for part 2 or something, like where they're just like, everyone is equal, no more classism. Where
Soji wanted to add like, and Soji gets $1 million. Like that's what he wanted to do, and they were like, we can't do that. And then Ryoma was like, yes, why don't we add everyone is equal now?
Yeah, that was wild. Some random dude on a boat. They broke embargo, to be honest.
yeah.
Because he says, like, yo, I should not be reading this. This is wild. I thought they were going to kill him on that boat right there. It's like, too bad, now.
Yeah, Yaro left a comment that Ryoma and Soji put a lot of faith into one random guy on a boat to read and edit the letter they're going to give to the shogun to change the country.
Yeah, it's like that guy could have just wrote, I get me, random guy on a boat. I am now the emperor.
It also felt like a moment where the game wanted to kind of reel everything back in. You can kind of tell, like, okay, let's refocus. Let's center back on the vision of his father that he wanted, and kind of, I guess, nudging you to remind you that, oh no, this is what Ryoma believes in as well. Which, I mean, you can buy into to varying degrees. I was fine with it. I was like, all right. I'm not like 1000% convinced, but I was like, all right, yeah, sure. I mean, he's been putting in this much work for this damn thing. I'm sure, I hope he believes in it on some level. But yeah, it was like this moment was like, okay, yeah, that's right. That's what we were fighting for. And then leading up, like that raid is actually really, really fun. You fight ninjas and you have to avoid cannonballs. Like it's really wild. You gotta do some weird environmental puzzles.
That's the part where you take control of the cannon, right? And you're just they're like two of those big guys who I had only seen in like the dungeons before, and they suck to fight, but you're just like hammering them with cannonballs.
Yeah, it's they do some pretty wild things in this particular moment. But I really did I did like that setup, and I think the 1v1 against Tokugawa himself was probably my favorite boss fight in this game. I think that was the moment when I really felt like the swordsman fighting style kind of like I feel like I'm really seeing the peak of what this combat system can be. And it's not the most complex thing or intricate thing, but I really felt like I was dialed in, I was locked in. So I really like that whole raid leading up to that fight. I think was probably maybe the peak for the core gameplay of it. And again, like even that conversation with Tokugawa, and that was also another thing that's kind of set the stage to remind you of what is actually at stake for the rest of the story.
That fight, I was surprised. I had a lot of trouble getting the swordsman style working with that. His like instant counterattack put me in a gunman mode. I said, this seems to be a gunman fight.
Yakuza fight where like the bosses had like magical abilities, because he has like a Hadouken.
Oh yeah,
and then
he does. Yep.
He throws knives at you. He like levitates the knives and then throws them. And I'm like not familiar with that combat in past Yakuza games.
I think
I was so surprised to see it.
I think Takechi also has that later on. I mean, and Izo is just like an anime character. I figured out there was a thing that I was doing towards the end with the big bosses, which felt a little like breaking the game, where in the swordsman style, there's a heat attack where you just kind of dodge towards them and you can immediately do a big slice thing, and then they fall down. And then when they're on the ground, you can hit them several times, especially with one of your like troop boosting attack things. And so a lot of my fights against bosses just looked like me doing that like 6 times in a row.
Yeah, that's also been, I think if I recall correctly, that's the tiger drop it's like the tiger drop from previous Yakuza games, it was one of the last abilities you can unlock, and it does that where it's kind of like a step forward, then like if you time it right, it's like boom, stun them and do a ton of damage, and you break the game in that way, and you don't gotta worry about this dude's Hadouken and fireballs, because that really
it was so weird.
It's funny that like this is the one that is most rooted in reality. It is also the one that flies off the rails the most when it comes to that sort of thing. I don't care. I'm kind of here for it. So
yeah, you can't prove they didn't have a fireball back then.
Yeah, there are no cameras.
Yeah,
or 30 feet dudes who are 30 feet tall and you shoot with cannonballs. Like, listen,
sure.
Maybe that's why they don't exist anymore. We took them all out.
Killed them all. Damn.
I bought one of those expensive troopers. I spent 10 Rio. This is about when you unlock like more expensive troopers that are better as the story goes on. And here you can finally get the 10 Rio one. And I got one that heals all my health, named Mikamura Mako. And when I activate it, she says, "Kissed it better for you."
Whoa.
Yeah. Pretty cute.
Oh, is that supposed to be cute?
Did you stay on difficulty, like high difficulty at the end?
No.
2?
No, I definitely...
Yeah.
I took the note and went down to easy and had a better time for sure.
Yeah.
I think...
Go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, normal, it's fine. I thought normal was ultimately good at the end, but also I had grinded up several levels, so maybe that helped.
Yeah, I'm sure normal is fine. I just ended up being in a bit of a hurry. But once you get through this boss fight, you hand him the letter. And in my interpretation of that scene, Ryoma was really too eager to say, "Our work here is done," and walk away.
Right, he just walked away.
Even said he was going to do it or not, right? Like, Did we even see him read it? He was just like, "I did my job.
Yeah.
Consider Japan saved."
Ryoma was like, I beat him in a fight. When I do that, they always end up agreeing with me.
That's very true.
It's like an unspoken rule. It's like, if I beat your ass, you have to do what I say. You can't just, I'm going to hand you a paper. There's no photocopied version of it. They didn't upload anything to Google Drive to pull up later. So I am handing you the only copy that states that there's going to be a shift in power in Japan. You can just have it. It's yours. Keep it. Like, dog, you just got off the boat where you just wrote in some new rules. Like, what are we doing here?
I also would have had the boat guy draft up a second copy.
Oh, yeah. But it is what it is.
In Chapter 12, Kyo ablaze, you return home to find Kyo ablaze.
Oh, who'd have thought?
Shocking.
The Chun writes in, courageous, noble, and an unshakable sense of duty. These are the qualities of the pawnbroker of Rakunai. As a scorching Kyo burns to the ground and I sprint through leaping flames towards the palace, I could still stop into his shop on my way by and be greeted with, Sir, it sounds like there's quite the commotion outside. If you need me, though, my shop is always open to you. Without his healing items, I may not have survived my next encounter with the formidable Okada Izo. Thank you, brother.
I think the pharmacy was also open. See, like the guy was just standing on a street corner.
Yeah,
he was like, "Oh, you need something?"
He was like, "It's weird that you're in here, but go ahead."
And medicine people all around, just like added places to heal up.
People seemed very like, some people seemed very bothered, and like other people were like very unbothered by like the city in flames.
It's like, my building's not in flames. I'm good.
Did you
That
have
sounds
a
like a y'all
moment
problem.
where you saw the inn in the cutscene, and it seemed like absolutely engulfed by flames? And then gameplay starts, and it's like, oh wait, I can go in here. Like, it's fine. You know, there's nothing going on. It seemed like I thought this might be. I mean, this is. I referenced at the beginning. This is like the going to the Emperor was the first of many things where they were like, hey, make sure you have everything you want to be done with done now. And I was like, oh, linear missions until the end. Cool. Not the case. This was another part where I was like, oh, the whole city's on fire. Guess all those missions going away. Nope, it actually was fine. They totally rebuilt very quickly.
Yeah,
Very
I mean,
quickly.
like, Japan is no stranger to places burning down often and quite frequently, so this isn't the first time Kyoto's burned, and this will not be the last time Kyoto has burned, so they bounce back pretty fast.
They bounce back in like the next day. They're like, we had all the planks of wood, we had all the workers on reserve in case something like this happened again. So the next day, hey, we're back in business. Ain't no thing.
It's their
That cat
indomitable
who
spirit.
keeps jumping in the river, it's still there. It's jumping in the river again.
It's all good. Yeah, but this chapter had some pretty dope cutscenes and some pretty dope fights. It felt like that there was a lot at stake, and I think who's the ugly ass dude in the Shinsengumi who caused like all the problems? I forgot his name. But you fight him.
Harada.
Yes, yeah. This dude.
Is that the one that you dropped the building on?
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
I was just gonna
it's
say,
like,
yeah.
is that his first like kill? Like Ryoma truly?
That's
I mean,
not as a kill.
That's
That's
not on him.
environmental.
Incapacitating him
Environmental.
under a collapsing tower?
it's very like Batman rules, where he's like, I don't have to save you.
He could have saved himself.
And it is my fault you can't walk away right now.
No, that fight was sick because he gives you the introduction of like, I'm the best fighter because I have no honor, and he has like the spear and the gun.
Yeah.
And you have the cool like quick time events where you do like a quick draw, like you turn around and shoot him. And then at the end, where he's like, aren't you going to say anything? Wasn't I like a good match? And Ryan was like, no.
Yeah, that's like the best part is that not only is this dude like mad disrespectful, but you are disrespectful back at him to his final moments. Even like him just the building falling on him that itself is very disrespectful right there. So I love it. Felt like, yes, finally I am enacting justice because I've hated this character since the start. I knew he was up to no good from day one, and to see him go out like this was perfect for me. And like you said, the quick time events for this fight in particular were were amazing. Like knocking the guns out of each other's hands, and they have their backs to each other for a slight moment before they get back into it. It's another great example of just how they choreograph these phase transitions in these fights. So yeah, this was a good one.
You make your way to Kondo to find Kondo, who's dying, and gives you his final message. Mm-hmm. And that scene was really interesting, where this man's bleeding out on the floor, but it becomes this really like upbeat, inspiring music playing. Yeah. Like Ryoma's so proud that this guy and his dad both like trusted him with their wills. He was like,
another
really
father figure lost. I noticed that in this chapter, it's a lot of Ryoma like cradling dying people in his arms. Mm-hmm. A little bit, like I noticed that a lot in this chapter, especially with, I think you see it later with Ito as well, like the dying breath cradle.
I like when Ryoma leaves and Kondo does his like all by himself, very dramatic. He like reaches up towards the sky, like, the Shinsengumi, you know, I think I did it because I found this good man to carry out my will. And it's, I mean, like, performance so good. I love that dude. I love him in Like a Dragon and here, or Yakuza 8 or whatever. And I thought he killed it here too.
Did he ask about the proposal at all? Were we like, we did it? Like, did he get it? Did he get my letter?
I think he was just like, Sakamoto got it. It's in good hands.
Yeah, trust him. But he did hand him something else. Like in his dying breath, he like handed him a piece of paper. I forgot what it was though. I don't know if any of y'all remember. I don't remember, but like he hands you something else. It's like,
yeah,
it's like
I know what you're
another
talking
dying
about.
wish or something. I think it was like, here's final .pdf for the thing that you handed this guy. I don't know.
Was it to meet Izo outside the Imperial Palace or something?
Maybe. I don't remember. Yeah, but
because after that you know exactly where to go, which is the Imperial Palace, to confront the guy who just killed your secondary father figure.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah. And you kill Izo, right? This is the fight we were
Which is weird because you actually kill him. Yeah, and I was convinced it was a no-kill. I thought Kiryu was a no-kill zone, but you see him get stabbed, and then you hold him while he dies. And
also of, you know, given how many people this game redeems, like Izo seemed, you know, ripe for realizing he was actually a good guy. You know, like they gave him so much kind of charisma and you know, seemingly honor that it was like, hey, you know, maybe they'll be friends after all. And instead he got to be the sickest fight, but not didn't live through it.
Yeah. Talk about another again. Like this chapter is just full of great fights. So.
I mean, it was like a Demon Slayer fight. Like they were like flying towards each other.
Yeah, this is when they were like felt like they really went off the rails with some of the cutscene transitions, and they do the thing where they have the title card introduction with when they clash blades for the first time before it goes to the fight. It's all kind of Izo, like that's I always love that stuff. But yeah, I found this difficult. This fight was pretty difficult because he has a lot of dodging moves. It turns purple and starts dodging everything. But again, incredible choreography throughout this fight.
The community was on the same page about it being out of nowhere that you kill him at the end, though. Kurgles says, I really thought the game was going to make a bigger deal out of Ryoma killing his first person, but they skipped merrily past it. I'm not really sure why he decided that was his time to murder. Cool fight, though.
I don't know. It wasn't. Ryoma didn't kill him. Blood loss killed him. I don't know.
Yeah. And then this is the point where we find out, like, for real, Takechi is still alive. You know, it's like Ryoma's like, my brother's not dead, and I'm like, yeah, you saw him, but yes, receive confirmation that he did not die when we thought he did.
Right. The next day after that, the boys have a summit, Okida, Hijikata, and Nagakura. And you have that meeting in the Shinsengumi meeting room for the first time in a long time, and you see just how many empty cushions there are.
Yeah.
Really uncomfortable, like Monday morning stand-up vibe after a mass layoff. Is, like the energy in the room.
Right. Well, and they're all sitting in like still their assigned seats, and I had that kind of. It's like, hey guys, we can like move these chairs closer together, right? Like we don't need to be on pillows.
I think we can fudge the numbers a little bit now.
That's so funny. Oh my god, that's one way to put what happened the night before. A mass layoff. Goddamn. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
And there's
it was,
like the two teams appear, right? Like the people who were like pro burning down the city and the people who were like anti burning down the city.
Yeah. I think this is like the moment where the rift between the two was immediately clear because wait, let me see. Was this the chapter
they do that little like murder mystery trick where who's talking about it? It's Ito. Ito's like, well, what are we gonna do now? The captain was killed. Someone's got to take over. And Hijikata's like, I don't remember saying he was killed.
Yeah.
And it's like it's such a trope, but honestly, I love it. Like I think I always find those moments very fun.
Yeah. This is the moment where the rift is made very clear, and the fact that the evil side had has the backing of the rest of the organization was like, oh snap. Yeah, definitely a turning point, but it was also exciting because now this is where we get to see again how this group of 5 dudes can overcome 1,000 others no matter what, and that's kind of like when y'all mentioned earlier about how this game kind of turned into more about how these core dudes can change the world because of the fire that is burning inside their heart. That was like, okay, this is that game now. Because I don't know if it's in this chapter or the next chapter, but they meet together and basically devise their plan. And it's like, okay, I've seen this before, and I'm here to see it again.
What's weird is that they got to keep the base in the divorce. Like I thought, like they were getting thrown out. But instead they were like, we're going to form a new organization under the Emperor. Right. To heck with the Shogunate. We're pro-Emperor now. Like, see ya, losers. And then they just like left, and now it's like, there's just like free real estate. Like, you don't want this? This place is pretty sick.
Yeah, they were like, but we do have to.
Room.
We have to leave Ryoma the ability to go kill bandits in caves. So, like he needs to keep.
Yeah, like there's like 2 people who are still employed at the Shinsengumi, and it's like the mission man, and then that one guy who's like sweeping constantly, and then maybe the door boys.
Oh,
this was a moment where the summary at the beginning of the next chapter really kind of tipped its hand at the twist where they said like, Ito left the Shinsengumi and he took a couple people, including Captain Toto. Wink. And I was like, oh, okay, so not really. And then the first cutscene in the next mission is them finding out that Toto's actually still good.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's our precious little boy. Right? He's the precious boy.
Our precious hot man.
Yeah. Oh.
He couldn't be bad.
Yeah. Nothing bad will happen to him, right?
Yeah, I don't. Sometimes
That's where I kind of got lost. It got a little blurry. Was where like they were like, so he's actually working as a spy with the baddies, but he's really on our team. And
now he's dead.
Immediately in the next chapter, he's exposed and murdered. So you're like, wow, that was fast. You took care of that really quickly.
Yeah, but he's kind of not exposed because there was that weird little thing where it's like he's killed by
their bodies.
Yeah, it's like he's killed by someone, but then they put his body with the other evil guy so that his ruse would not be revealed.
I remember when they were carrying off his body, and I was like, why are they like carrying off his body? And then they're like, oh, we're gonna go plant it next to the other guy. The Shinsengumi PR. Whatever, like, PR wheel is going on in the Shinsengumi, it's a hard job, it seems like. Because it feels like they're constantly having to make up for, like, members being assassinated by other members.
I mean, you picture someone being like, no, 12 of our 15 members haven't been killed. All those pillows are still full. We're still fine.
They go to another school. I swear they exist.
This is like the people who end up quitting after a mass layoff. Right. More people going down. Yeah.
I'm pretend I'm looking at Leo through my Discord window.
But yeah, it is like explicit that they cover all these deaths up for the illusion of strength, for the illusion of we aren't constantly getting dropped every 5 minutes. Yeah, chapter 13, the assassination of Sakamoto Ryoma. Great chapter name. That's when Toto gets killed, and you track
a little
down
misleading chapter name.
A little bit,
given us there are two, and both are still alive at the end.
There's so many Sakamoto Ryomas out there. You're like, it could be any of us, literally any of us.
Okay, so. Oh, okay. No, you go, Leo. I was gonna say something, but
isn't there at the end of this chapter, when you meet Takechi, you find out he's been ahead of you on everything and he's ready for this trap you're springing. There is a little conversation about this dead guy on the ground and how he is Sakamoto Ryoma.
Yeah, I was so confused.
Well, so I guess this is a part where I have just read the Wikipedia article on it, but it's like, we know Sakamoto Ryoma, the real guy, was assassinated. And then in the next chapter, they essentially say, like, hey, whatever happens to me, like, Sakamoto Ryoma's dead. Like, I'm kind of moving on from that life. And so, again, this seemed like a part where maybe they were trying to work the historical record into it, where it's like, hey, we know at this time a Sakamoto Ryoma was killed. And so they just kind of put it on this random guy who was in the room with them.
We don't want it to be either of our Sakamoto Ryoma.
Yeah.
Yeah, not these other two, just that one, which I think that one specifically was the one selling the British weapons to the Sacho Alliance. That one specifically, there's like the Sakamoto Ryoma on the loyalist side, then there's Sakamoto Ryoma who's selling the weapons to the Sacho Alliance, like the guns and stuff. So he's all over the place.
Yeah, that's a plot thread that can be lost pretty easily, I think. Like, I just remembered it when you mentioned it, Sarah. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. There's a whole subplot about British weapons being funneled into Japan, and the name Sakamoto Ryoma being used as like a linchpin for that to happen, which was like important, but I don't feel like the game highlighted it enough, because that is kind of a huge motivation for the struggle for power throughout the whole thing. But it's shown in a couple cutscenes, but I don't think it's really brought to the forefront until like the finale. I don't think, was it when you actually fight it's so funny when you fight like British people in the Yakuza game. I think this is only the second time really, but I just find it hilarious.
I have things to say about Glover when we get there.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah, we'll get there. What I was gonna say is that I don't remember if it was y'all where we talked about Takechi's gray hair in this chapter.
Yeah.
I know, but I wrote things down about this.
Yeah, I'm gonna let y'all run with that. I think it had to have
been like a visual glitch, right? There's no way, because he went from like white hair to like using like just for men in the next chapter.
Well, yeah, but it's so weird, because he says, like, Ryoma says, like, what happened to you? And I was like, yeah, what happened to him? He's gone completely white. Like, I thought that's kind of what he was referring to, was like your kind of evil heart is like manifesting in your appearance.
Yeah.
But like I guess it was just like lightning. He was being lit by lightning, and so maybe it was a weird like lightning interaction. But he looked He looked like he had seen a ghost and got spooked and all his hair turned white.
Yeah, that was because it's like you see it flash with when the lightning strikes. You see it like, oh, yo, he looks completely different. But then you just see him. He's like nothing. There's like a camera zoom on him, and it's like, oh, his hair is just gray now. Like, did like all the stress weigh down on him and hit all these the weight of all these terrible decisions are being represented in the fact that he has gray hair. We'll come back around to that in the finale, but what the hey, listen, they didn't got camera phones, no one knows who's who, they didn't have photocopiers, but you know what, they had hair dye, so he took advantage of it.
True.
He says, have you even seen yourself lately? Which is like
they meant like emotionally, like spiritually you've become a monster. Like,
yeah.
I didn't think they meant literally your hair you've gone gray.
It's no, this is so weird. It's like I'm looking at the cutscene right now, and it's like he is completely gray. Like
I'm still on the side that it's a visual bug. I simply cannot believe that they would choose to make a character of white hair for a chapter.
It has to be a visual bug for sure. Seeing him again at the end back to normal, I was like, oh, is there going to be some fake out with like a body double that he has or something? It was
Don't they even show you a photo of him? Like Otose's like, this is the guy claiming to be Sakamoto Ryoma, and he's like, oh no, that's my brother. Like she literally, like it's the first photograph ever that they've ever seen.
They're like,
and
it's called
like,
a photograph.
Yeah, and they're like, he was like, oh shit, that's my brother.
I did really like that, yeah, where he just threw that photograph down on the table and everyone was like, what is this?
This is the world, but on a sheet. What's going on? Well, Michael stepped out for a second, so I don't want to jump into chapter 14 just yet. If we have any other general notes here, I had one I wanted to mention. When you talk to the landlord without having enough money to pay off an installment of your homestead, the landlord says...
The landlord never even showed up for me.
You didn't get a letter in the mail or something?
I don't think so. Oh, maybe I did. And like in real life, if you just ignore it, they can't do anything to you.
Yeah, it's on you to go track him down, and he's not going to find you. And when I didn't have the money, he said, come on, this is my livelihood. You want me to have to work for a living?
Oof.
Yes.
Based.
I wanted to note earlier when Toto dies, so I didn't mean to make this rhyme. When Toto dies, Soji cries, but it's actually it is like a very emotional moment for him, and I feel like even though he's gotten close to you, like seeing him shed tears is like very intense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was his bro.
Another note I had was that the way I remember that the barracks for the Shinsengumi are in Mibu is I think me have to go there every day.
I think I was like, they're at the furthest spot on this map.
Well, it is so annoying that there are just two places that the map does not extend to, and so it won't show you where your little taxi is going. And so yeah, there's the one place that's essentially the red light district, and then there's the other place that's the barracks, and you just gotta remember.
Yeah, you need a mnemonic device, and I should have shared that one earlier for people.
The barracks, if I'm correct, I believe is actually a shrine, because what they would do is they would kind of take over shrines. These like military groups, these police groups would take over like Buddhist shrines essentially, and they'd say like, all right, the government says we get to live here and you can stay or you can go, but like these are our now. Like they basically like commandeer it for their personal uses, which is why it was so beautiful, and it doesn't really seem like where a bunch of military boys would be hanging out. But yeah, that's like the backstory to that.
Wow. That's one of those things you assume is just like a stylistic choice.
Do we want to, before jumping into the final mission, talk about like side stuff, or should we finish the story first and then?
Let's mix it up with some side stuff.
Okay, well, there were two storylines about vegetables that I have very important updates on.
Please.
One, the veggie-loving boy, when you get his, you give him enough veggies, his mom comes out, she's like, don't make me try veggies. I really don't want to do it. And then you give her a salad and she's like, this is pretty good. And so the veggie loving boy is happy, but then you see him again and he is distraught because his mom only makes that one salad now. And Sakamoto's like, she is a lady of obsessions. It's like no veggies and now only this one. And so his name turns into like formerly veggie loving boy, and now he wants fish, and you give him fish instead. And then there's also the woman who is asking for vegetables very seductively. Did y'all finish this one?
Didn't finish it.
What did she work up to?
The punchline is very obvious. She's just like, my husband's coming home and I'm making him a big salad. And Rian was like, a salad? And she's like, yeah, what do you think these were for? But like the level to the last thing she asks for is a pumpkin. And the way she's describing it, Rian was like, what in God's name is she going to do with this pumpkin?
It's coincidental that she's into vegetables.
Yeah.
And everyone's like really into salads too, apparently. Like it all just goes back to getting a salad. Did you guys get to the, I believe it was like Monsieur Pony sub quest, which was a play on Matthew Perry, the knock knock open the country man, like the black ships of Matthew Perry. If you go back to where the cat falls into the water, there's like a white guy in like a raft that's falling apart.
Yeah.
He like comes to shore and he's like seasick, and you have to fix his seasickness, but his name is like Monsieur Pony, and he's like, they talk about the black ships and he looks like him, and I'm glad they kind of did that, because it was weird that at the end we get that other guy, was it Glover at the end, the Dutchman?
Thomas Glover.
So I appreciate that they at least mentioned him, even though they made fun of him, but that's fair.
There were a couple funny like white people side stories, because there's him who's seasick and you keep giving him these like ridiculous cures that do not work. They're like, you should get him really drunk. Maybe he'll be less seasick. And then there's another one where some white guy is there and he's walking around and he's like, why would everyone attack me? I'm here to fix your backwards country. You idiots don't know how to plant crops. And then people keep attacking him and you have to like defend him.
Sean Mills says the side quests were my favorite part of the game. My favorite was playing house with a group of kids outside the Shinsengumi barracks. You can accuse the kid playing dad of cheating on you, and the kids play along with it in a hilarious way. Very good.
Did y'all get interviewed by the reporter?
Yeah, I didn't do. I messed up one of the questions.
Yeah, I don't know what happens
because
after.
It's kind of fun to mess up the questions, but I only messed up one, and then I think it was the one about how we like the Shinsengumi, like it's about being men together or something. Something in that vein, and then he was like, I can't publish this, and I was like, it was one question. It was like their first interview ever.
And those kinds of side quests, do you still get rewards if you give all the goofy answers, or is there kind of like a right way to do it that gets you the best reward? Because the reward always seems, small and inconsequential anyway, just kind of a cute little thing to get.
I think so. I think there's not there's some that if you do it perfect, but it's pretty obvious which one, versus like the littler ones where it's just answering a series of silly questions. You'll get something.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely want to give more goofy answers. That's something I aspire to, but I take it too seriously. I'm like, I need to optimize this.
Yeah. I think for the side stuff is, I just kept doing more of what I had mentioned in the previous episodes of this, which is the fan dancing and karaoke and Another Life. I invested a lot of time in those things because there's no real reward other than like upping your relationship with that establishment, but I need to get perfect combos and all of them things. I really just enjoy doing that. And the Resident Evil inventory Tetris that you play with crop farming, that I thought that was still my favorite thing. And like there is like, as we may have mentioned before, you get a ton of money when you later on in this game. So the whole thing about like selling different items that you want from or that the vendors want from another life, I invested so much time and effort into that, only to be undercut by the game itself. But I had fun doing it. Like I 100% it. I got all the recipes. I caught all the fish. I got perfect recipes for all the different ones, and I just really enjoyed that. I get fixated on that sort of thing, and I like the fact that another life lets you do something that was different enough from everything else. So like in Zero, I really like dancing at the club, and I like doing karaoke there. And I think for me, like the real estate stuff kind of filled that void. For me, and obviously the club, managing the club, like Ishin doesn't have that level of minigame depth, I don't think, as Zero did, and kind of the later versions of the game. I don't think they like necessarily brought something from the new games and retrofitted it for this game necessarily. I think this is pretty faithful in terms of like its feature set, but at least like Another Life was the one that I latched onto. And I felt like rewarded your time the most out of all the things.
Does the Haruka plot line, like, does it reach like a resolution, or do you just kind of stay, tight?
I don't think I saw the last scene in it. I have it maxed out. I have a relationship.
Did you see the one where they're
but
like chatting while like sleeping or something? Like
I thought that one was really
that's
sweet.
The one that
but
I got to.
I think that's maybe story relevant, because one of the missions is just like go back and like talk to Haruka.
Maybe that's what it is.
I like that scene a lot, where he kind of, I mean, it's still their kind of like weird relationship or whatever, but Ryoma has that line where he's like, I think I've just been kind of like lonely and sad for so long that I internalized life feeling like this, and now I kind of realize that it doesn't have to, and that's like it's weird that I feel lonely now, because I was lonely for my whole life, but I just kind of shut it out and thought that it was one of those very good Yakuza, like, prying open the shell of masculinity a little bit. Yeah. Like, he was allowing himself to be vulnerable in a way that I found very, very sweet.
Nice.
Yeah, when they sent me back to the house, I thought that I was gonna like tell her that I was like going on this trip and I might die, basically. Like, but he doesn't say anything. Like that. Nope. Hey, I'm gonna be gone for a while. Like, I might not come back. Like, here's what you should do. He's just kind of like gives her a life lesson. They go to sleep, and then he's just like, okay, maybe see you again, maybe don't. Who knows? About to overthrow the government.
I do like about that Another Life stuff how like much health a premium dish you prepare gives you. Like, it makes it really worth it to dip back there between missions.
That was another thing too. When I found out that getting perfect dishes, making those, I filled my inventory full of those things. When I found it replenishes your entire health bar, so that came in clutch as well.
Yeah, I can see why that boy's mom loves them so much. One more side quest here from Chaz Cheeto. Talkin' Tosa, which is the one... I'll just read it. For this quest, a gentleman asks if you can read Tosin, which has Ryoma suspicious this guy knows his identity. The quest to help him read letters written by a lady he met with a strong Tosin dialect. The way they end up conveying this is by giving her a super heavy Irish accent with Irish slang. It's a very funny choice, in addition to being a cute love story that plays out over a few letters. That was an interesting way to do it. Weird little Irish idioms.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because, I think I mentioned this before, talking to the localization team over the years and asking them how do they make the parallels between in previous games where they always kind of gave like the Osakan accent. They likened it to either Southern American Southern slang or just like the way the way I would talk in a normal environment, like people from like inner cities and things like that. That's how they would do the parallel between the different dialects in Japan and whoever's from like Tokyo and stuff. They just speak what you would think of as standard English. So That's an inspired choice. I haven't played it. I haven't played through that myself, but I definitely want to see it now because the way they play with language and to give you the impression as, you know, not a Japanese speaker is like, okay, I can. This is what they're going for, and yeah, no one does that better than like the Sega and the RGG localization teams. So
yeah, isn't
fun.
there a white person in Like a Dragon, Yakuza 7, where they in the English dub they have him speak Japanese to show that he's a foreigner?
Oh yeah. There's that dude outside the like the adult school.
Yeah,
and you run into him and he asks you like where's which way to the train station, and he speaks in really broken Japanese because he's like trying to fit in, if I recall correctly. I think
right, and then it's like your friend from the school comes out and is in kind of like English, is like, go left, then go, and he's like, yeah, it's very good. Actually, I do have one more side quest thing to bring up because I have to explain why my YouTube history has a channel called Naughty Gaming in it. As I mentioned, I couldn't get past like the drinking mini game when you go into a brothel. Like I would just spill it on my face every time. But there are two.
So it's like expensive.
Yeah, it's really pricey. There are two more mini games that you play with the women working there. One is strip rock paper scissors, where you're playing rock paper scissors, and when you or she loses, they take off an item of clothing. Wow. And then the last one is I can't even really describe this. It's like a bullet hell shoot 'em up, and the plot is like she's gotten too drunk and you need to help her calm down, and so you're playing like a little just figure of Sakamoto who's shooting bullets at words, and the words coming down are like compassion, heart, kind, and then there's a heart and you're trying to like blow up the heart, and you do that, and then every time you do it, you get like a little seductive pose of her. And then at the end, Sakamoto's like, all right, thanks. And she's like, wait, you're leaving? And he's like, yeah, I just wanted to play rock, paper, scissors.
It's just a fun game.
Yeah, so virginity still canon.
Virginity intact. But maybe not for long as we head into chapter 14, Dawn Breaks. This starts off with that speech we talked about earlier from Okida about your double lives and trying to bring you and Oreo back together, and you spend a day with her, kind of on a day-long date. What were you guys' highlights from that?
That one was so weird because it was like they decided that they're gonna do this like really big. All the boys are gonna go down to Tosa, and they're gonna put an end to these shenanigans. And then they're like, but like, I think you should talk to that girl who's really into you. She's like really into you, and like, don't miss this opportunity. Because she's like really into you. And then you have to take her all over town. But I didn't know that you could take her to like expensive places. So I literally just took her to like the closest, cheapest places I could.
You went to Burger King.
Yeah, I took her to like McDonald's. Like I didn't realize like I could have, really taken her somewhere nice.
Oh, I think it like marked on your map like the closest thing to it also.
It was like the udon restaurant was the closest.
Yeah, so I was like, I guess I'm supposed to go here, but it's so fun.
This game is so much better at creating romantic chemistry between men than between men and women.
It's like the issue in every single Yakuza game is there's more chemistry between the men than the men and the women they're supposed to have chemistry with.
Yeah, I think the only one that I think was actually like done well and I think looped back around to be better was between Majima and Makoto from Zero, and then it being represented back in Kiwami 2. But even then, yeah, and then
it should have been the relationship that should have been.
I know that was like the only instance I think that Yakuza probably got it right, or at least got you in your feelings, because everything else feels pretty forced. I know in 5 they came onto something with Majima again in 5, but you didn't really get to see it through because also the way they use women as plot devices throughout the Yakuza series has always been one of its weakest aspects, definitely. And I think that's largely true here as well, where it's like they didn't really go in any depth with their women characters, and it's unfortunate, but such is the Yakuza stories.
Yeah,
I like that I got to sing my favorite karaoke song, Fighting Sakura, which is where he's like, it shows him like pulling up turnips and being like, yeah.
That's
I like that you took her to just watch you, right? Like you take her, you're like, watch me sing. Now watch me dance. Are you having a good time on our date?
When I have a date over and I'm like, now watch me play this part of Resident Evil. Yep. She's like, okay.
Yeah. Want to watch you play video games?
We've all been there.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Most realistic part of it, for sure.
Watch me dance with my fans.
I remember having a friend over and be like, oh, you want to see me play Ravenholm in Half-Life 2? It's pretty sick.
The secret is that they don't want to watch you play that, but they will say yes politely.
I know that now.
The first time my girlfriend came over to my apartment, it was like we had a very nice night out with her friends, and we got back at like 11, and I was like, hey, I need to do my Red Dead daily to keep my streak going.
Jesus Christ.
Before the day turns.
Oh, Leo.
And you know what? We're happily together. She's just a room away right now.
Happy ending!
Hey,
and now she's doing your Red Dead daily, so you can do this podcast.
That's right. Well, love is real, folks. After that, it's time to siege Tosa, which you return to turned into a giant like military
Before
fortress.
that, though, you take her to Kiyomizu-dera, which is just a beautiful temple. If you're ever in Kyoto, definitely go. It's absolutely gorgeous. And then he just like lectures her. And she's like, you have to come back if you want my cooking. And he was like, okay, I really liked your cooking. And then, but he gives her like this weird lecture about, society and things, and I'm like, she's not here for that.
Mansplaining society.
I mean, the thing is, like, it's really not clear what does she like about him other than he is a very hot man?
I think somebody mentioned that Oryo is actually the name of, I don't know if it's Saito Hajime or Nyoma Sakamoto, but like is actually the historical wife of this character. So they're again like shoehorning weird historical accuracies into this game, but they also completely ignored the Boshin War, which is essentially the fall of the shogunate. In this cutscene on Kiyomizu-dera Temple, he looks at Oryo in the face and he's like, by the way, like the shogunate fell. Literally, when we weren't looking, the thing we were supposed to be protecting fell. Mm-hmm. And it just doesn't matter anymore. And it bothers me because it's like a really cool thing where the Sacho Alliance basically just like defeated the shogunate. It was really embarrassing for them. And then they just marched in on Edo and then they just kind of like surrendered. But that's all happening. And apparently we don't care anymore.
Yeah, that
because
barely
we're
even
going to go
registered.
see our brother.
You had the night out with the two dudes, and from there I was like, my work is done there. I'm not
it's just so
involved in
weird
that
because there's
anymore.
like an entire raid on Kyoto. Like they march on Kyoto and they give up the Imperial Palace and
it's
he's just like, oh yeah, the shogunate fell.
Yeah, it's like word on the street is it's weird because like the story of Ishin doesn't necessarily like rework the history that they're playing with, because like it's all historical fiction, right? But they could have like, you have so much, you've taken so many liberties and so many freedoms with the history that you're working with, that for them to still incorporate that element of it was like, if you're not going to play with it, then why bring it up? Or maybe you could have teed that up in a smarter way, because you've taken all these other liberties. So like you could have done something a little bit more there with that. So that's definitely, I don't know, it's like, we gotta wrap it up. So what are we gonna have Ryoma say to tie all these things together?
Oh, by the way, the government that I'm working to protect fell. Anyways, I'm going to Tosa.
Yeah, it's all about me and my boys now. I don't care about anything else.
I think it's kind of interesting, just the concept of them going to pray, because it's like we don't really see any like explicit religiosity from anyone, but it's just like, yeah, we'll go to pray. And I'm like, to you, like what are you getting out of this? You know, are you kind of a religious man? Is this just something that everyone does? You know, and I don't need the game to explain it more. I just thought it was like an interesting thing where it's like, it would be weird if Leon and Ashley, you know, at the end, Leon was like, let's just go to church. Like, let's hang out.
Did they just go to like a shrine?
Yeah, I think so.
Pray.
Yeah.
That's pretty common in Japan to just like go to a shrine into an undefined higher power. Pray. So I guess, yeah, I could see like looking at it from like a Western lens. You're like, wait, we're religious suddenly?
Yeah.
But in Japan, it's just like throwing like a coin into a wishing well. Like, hope I don't die today.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he kind of prays to shrines all over the place.
Oh yeah, that's a gameplay feature. You gotta find all
the
the shrines.
ninja of the jinja.
Yeah, and where you can store all your belongings. And
I mean, look,
somewhere
I would
else.
pray all the time too if I just had a box that I could access all over the place.
Yep.
Yeah, and praying gives you virtue, like in real life.
Yeah.
It was weird to see the dungeons like that you started out fighting in return here. Like those were tiles from the last siege in the game were given to you as like the little first fights in the Shinsengumi barracks fights.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have the first cutscene again. You know, it's kind of like the return, right? Where you, like, I kind of didn't realize it until you walk around that corner in like first person and you see Soji standing there, and I was like, oh, this part.
Right, yeah. I totally forgotten by that point for sure that it started in that flash forward.
Yeah.
It's a typical siege where one by one the boys are getting left behind. They're heroically saying, I'll hold these guys off. You beat them the first time and they're like, actually, we're not dead. And then somebody from your group says,
Must be sacrificed.
yeah.
Oh, wait, actually, before you left on that mission, did you just like fight them at the
You had to. That was
Shinsengumi
so
barracks?
weird. They were like, you want to just get some steps in before we
I didn't
leave?
know.
I was
I didn't
wondering
know
if
if
that
it
was
was
optional.
required.
I think
didn't
it
know either.
was.
Yeah, I mean, I did it just because it was fun, but yeah, it was so, especially with Hijikata. He was like, hey, you know, we've never fought before. You want to just do that real quick? And I was like, hey, sure.
Yeah. I did like that. I think that was neat. Yeah, I didn't know if it was required because it framed it in a way that it was optional, but I did it anyway. And the cool thing about those fights was like, okay, I'm gonna get one more in with my bros before we head out. But the music that plays when you fight them are some folks may recognize from like previous iterations when you fought those same characters in other Yakuza games, but with the inclusion of like the old traditional Japanese instruments along with it. And I thought that was a really nice touch. The one that stood out to me most was when you fought Soji Okita, and it's and it also that same song plays when you in Yakuza Like a Dragon when you fight this person, and you'll know if you play it, but I don't want to say it outright. But that's the same song that plays when you fight that character in a certain situation, and I really like that as a nice touch because you see it later on in this chapter. That is a recurring theme, and I thought that was a really cool touch.
We've gotten to the part we've all been waiting for.
Yeah,
The British weapons dealer, Thomas Glover.
Yes.
That was a cool part where you had to like run while the ships were shooting. They were like shooting cannons, and you were kind of going into the cave to get onto the boat. And I was like looking, and I was like, are those like European ships firing on me? Because the entire thing's just a mess. And then, yeah, you get on the boat and he's like, I'm a Dutch guy and I sell weapons.
Clever. Yeah.
And I don't like you.
And I think that's the same character model that from the boss in Yakuza 3.
Yeah, the CIA agent.
Yeah.
The American CIA agent.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got so hyped up whenever you were fighting along with the other Shinsengumi, and they would, you'd all be taking your positions, and you'd see them get in like Tenon Rishin position. I was just like, oh, now they're fighting alongside me, and they're doing this form that I know is like so intense. So it's very exciting. And then you get to Glover, and you, if you're me, shoot him with a minigun. Did y'all do that?
No, but it's poetic justice if you ask me.
Yeah.
That fight was so annoying. I thought because there you have the other dudes who are posted up at the mounted guns around you, and if you don't get rid of them quickly, then you're just gonna get mowed down. I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna do this.
And I don't know if it was just me, but like I found that my fellow Shinsengumi didn't really like do much. Like for the most part, they would just kind of stand around like this. And like I'm like Majima, like I'll bring him right to you, and I would like run the enemies like right to them, and he would just stand there, and I was like, I think this is probably one of the worst companion AIs in a Yakuza game that I've played, because usually in past Yakuza games you can do like heat actions together, they'll like hold them for you so you can punch them. But in this game, for whatever reason, they were just kind of like stand around, and the boss only ever targeted you. Ever. So like the entire time, like the boss would just be chasing you around, and then your NPC companions may or may not be like actually assisting you. But I thought they could have put in a little more effort in helping me. Because I was not impressed. Because when you fight them, they're like fighting Okita Soji is like he's a menace. And then meanwhile, like actually in battle, he's just like, nee. And I'm like, are you going to stab him, or are you just going to stand in front of him?
It's like you tried so hard when you were fighting me. You don't bring that same energy for everyone else. Come on now.
His heart's not in it. Absolutely.
So
I liked at that point I had unlocked one of the heat actions is when someone is aiming a gun at you in Swordsman, you can dash to them, cut through the bullet they shoot, and then like slash them. And so I was doing just fully, I don't know, like Wanted or Metal Gear Rising stuff where I was just like cutting bullets in half.
Yeah.
And it was so Uncanny Valley hearing like English call outs from enemies.
Yeah.
Instead of like Japanese. Like that was really uncomfortable all of a sudden. I was like, oh, sounds horrible. What language? What does he say?
Oh my god. Yeah, this is so funny, but I think my favorite thing about this was that Okita Soji calls him Thomas Glamour-chan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was like, where did you get that from? It's like no matter who he's talking to, he screws up their name and adds Chan.
He's gonna roast them. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that
Thomas Glamour.
A pointed dig because he's like cares about his appearance or whatever.
Yeah. He's you fight him in a nice tux that apparently
and
is
obviously
flexible.
Soji does not care about his appearance. He doesn't take
sure.
care of himself at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that was that was pretty wild. Oh, I guess was it? Oh, it was definitely before this though. You fight the Kuze parallel. I forgot his name in this game, but that was another instance where they played Kuze's boss theme, and I thought that was definitely a top tier moment in this chapter. So it kind of like they came out with all the stops in this one for its fights when like trying to loop it around to the rest of the franchise. And I thought that was stuff like little things like that I'll always remember, and I think are really cool touches to those who played the other games.
Yeah, that seems really rewarding for a fan of the series. Then you keep fighting your way up, and you fight who else? Your brother Takechi.
Who knew he was alive?
That's right. What a twist.
I'm shocked.
And he does not have gray hair.
Nope. He got that just for men.
Yeah, he repented for his sins, and his hair came back.
Yeah, so I guess, we should talk about Takechi's kind of motivations, because we find out that, like, he is the reason that your dad is dead. Essentially, like, he paid the assassin or whatever because he thought that y'all's father didn't have it in him to do what it took to, like, revolutionize the country. That essentially both you, Sakamoto, and your dad were, like, too soft, and it took kind of a stricter revolutionary. Did y'all, like, did that make sense? This was really one where it was just kind of like, you just talked him down, you know? You just kind of said some very basic things to him at the end, and he was like, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, again, you have to beat his ass. So that's the end all be all to this whole story. Is if you can beat my ass, nothing I tell you or everything I tell you is going to be true afterwards.
He, like, wasn't that upset to find out, though, that his, like, brother was the one that assassinated his father, though? Oh, and the bloodstain was still there, by the way. Did you notice that in the castle?
I didn't.
Nobody cleaned up the bloodstain that their father left there. Like, if you go back through that room a little bit and they talk, and I'm like, the bloodstain is still there.
That's crazy.
How long are we going to leave this bloody tatami on the floor? Like, clean that up. But
no. Oh, yeah, that's pretty wild. Again, I think, like I said, I think Ryoma had, like, kind of gotten over. He's over it. It's like, my dad died. Whoever did it.
Dead.
Yeah, whoever did it. It is what it is. But it's definitely up there with the type of silly Yakuza drama where you find out this big plot point. Oh, it was me all along, brother. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I saw that from a mile away, but I'm still here for it.
I mean, the fight is awesome.
Cool. It is cool,
so good. The choreography, I love the scene transitions where, you know, you're kind of inside and then you end outside.
Yeah.
Is this one with, like, you both have to, like, run for your guns? Like, you go by, like, each of the fighting styles, kind of.
Yeah.
You're, like, switching between them. Like, he does, like, sword, gun, and then dancer.
Yeah.
To get through it. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, little touches like that. And, like, one of the scene transitions or the fight transitions where, like, one of the door boards go up and then you slice through it and you see him come right through and at you. Which
is absolutely a Metal Gear Rising shot.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
So much that I think it is an explicit homage, because it's like, that is just, I was like, that's Revengeance.
Yeah, that was pretty sick. I thought that was cool. And, like, yeah, there's. I think this is probably the best choreographed fight in the whole. I mean, it's the last fight in the game, and it's where everything is on the line. So they pulled out all the stops for this one. I know I've said that about the other ones, but that stuff was so cool. You see just darting at you through the board, like barreling towards you, cut it up, and then they both pull out their guns. They're staring each other down. They're sidestepping. They're looking at each other's eyes, and they know what's at stake. It's and they're just, like, running up to, and again, the rooftop. Every Yakuza game has to end on the rooftop. And then so the fight progresses and gradually, like, they're running up the stairs pointing their guns at each other. And they're, like, slicing the bullets they shoot at each other. And then you end up at the rooftop. You throw the guns on the ground. It's like, you know what? We're not going to shoot each other, so let's just get down to it. God, the escalation of this particular fight is definitely up there with some of the better Yakuza fights or the final bosses in the series. So I really, really enjoyed this fight. It definitely wasn't the hardest one, I don't think, but it was probably the most cinematic one, the most exciting one, just because of how many phases it went through. But this was a really good note to end on.
Yeah, and I am with Jacob on, like, the exact ideology clash being a little less clear, being less involved on. You know, he wants to lead the country in an evil way, and you want him to stop doing that and lead it in a good way.
Yeah, there was. I think Ryoma's stoicness. There's a part that I really like, even further towards the end, but like, thinking about, again, the one I've played, the end of VII, or Like a Dragon, is you see the main character get so, like, unbelievably emotional in kind of like one of just, like, those video game performances that, like, I will never forget. And And so here, seeing him essentially just be Sakamoto Ryoma, where he can deliver an impassioned speech, but you never, like, I don't know, I didn't get the sense that he was that connected to Takechi in the way that I kind of wanted him to be. It was I mean, we'll talk about the pivot to like the politics at the end. It got a little weird for me.
It got a little weird for me too, I think, because I am kind of with you, larger picture, that you kind of ask yourself, where did this come from? Like, and I know earlier I had mentioned like, oh, well, I gave a pass because I made this mental connection with whatever. Oh, he cares about his dad, but now he cares about his dad's vision more so now. And then, oh, his brother's here, but now he wants to, like, it's a clash of ideals. But I think the pivot is a little too hard at the very end, where it's kind of like, all right, I can't bang with you on this jump right here. So yeah, and so like Ryoma and Kiryu as the main character, and part of what made that work through 6 games or 7 games counting 0 is that he's stoic because he's a badass. So the moments that he does break are so much more impactful. But the thing is that this is the only time that we know him as Ryoma Sakamoto. We don't have, 3, 4, 5, 6 games leading up to this point. So it's kind of hard to get a gauge of where his heart's at. Of course, we know him as Kiryu, but in this context, he's fighting for something very different. And then so when he kind of, that stoic nature doesn't necessarily play as seamlessly into what the stakes are, the stakes that he's fighting for. So I think there is a bit of a disconnect. And I agree with Jacob on that yes, I love this character, and I like Takeo Kuroda is like still one of the best voice actors. I just don't know if like he was necessarily the right one, or the only one who was, if he's the only one put in that position to carry out this kind of vision and this legacy. I feel like there would have been a more convincing way to do it, either with this character or with multiple characters kind of backing him up.
Let's kind of walk through this final cutscene here after the fight, because you get a lot of information and a lot of stuff happens. Takechi first off reveals that your pops, as you and Tim have been lovingly calling him, was going to pretty much leave all of Tosa to you, essentially. Snakeo in the chat says he was going to give the family business to Ryoma.
Mm-hmm.
He also drops that the reason he took Ryoma's name was kind of as a challenge to see how Sakamoto Ryoma would be remembered in history. Like which one of them would have the impact that the history books wrote about.
Mm-hmm.
Which was kind
of
interesting.
I wish someone would try that with me.
Damn. That'd be cool as hell.
Yeah, I mean, I think I did really like along the theme of identity, this thing that they kind of come onto at the end of like, what does Sakamoto Ryoma mean? And Ryoma at the end kind of deciding like, you know what, my time with that name is done. No matter what happens here, like I'm ready to stop living as this guy. Again, leaving him to historical record and like live my own life. And so I thought that part was really interesting.
Yeah. And then of course, Yamauchi Yodo shows up. JC Ice writes in, I'll admit I was having trouble keeping track of who was who, but who the hell was Yamauchi Yodo? Was he even mentioned at all before he showed up to be the big bad behind it all? Kind of glad he just got off in a cutscene and I didn't have to find him.
I think they did mention him. Was he not the guy that was kind of sent to, like, replace your father previously? Am I remembering that correctly?
He was definitely mentioned. Definitely very, very
We've never
small
seen him
way.
before, though. This is the first time you've seen him.
Yeah.
I mean, it totally felt like the Final Fantasy boss thing where it's like, surprise, the real boss is God. And it's like, you've never heard of him before.
Fight him. Like, when he showed up, I was worried that I was going to have to fight this man. And I was like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired of fighting. I just fought my way up this tower.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I can't exactly remember how he played into the rest of the story, but I guess just like ta-da! Here's this man who wants to sell Japan out to the British because he can be rich.
That was
And I
such
was
a
like-
weird. First of all, offended that they chose the British, because like America was also right there, and honestly, we were there first. So weird choice.
We were colonizers first.
Yeah, weird choice to decide to go after the British with that. That's not in the history books, like someone trying to secretly sell out the country. What a weird little, like, it felt like the Scooby-Doo moment where they like take off the guy's mask and he like admits his entire plan. You know, where you're like, why are you like monologuing to me your evil goals before you kill me?
Yeah, when your plan is to just shoot me and my brother dead right now. Classic.
Yeah.
Go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I do love. I agree. I'm glad you didn't have to fight him. I'm also glad that there was like one guy in the game who like couldn't fight. You know, if he was also like a master swordsman, I'd be like, come on now, what is going on? But I love villains panicking because like their plan is not as good as they thought it was. And when he shoots Sakamoto 3 times, and Sakamoto's like still standing, and he just kind of is like, I don't know what to do. This guy is too strong for me. Like he stood up for 3 bullets. That was when I thought that Ryoma's like stoicness really worked, and I liked that it was just like, this man is so strong. He is not going to be taken down by bullets, and that is kind of like the metaphor for his character.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
and I got 6 other games for you, man. 'Cause they that happens quite frequently, and it works every single time. But then this is also like when Ryoma starts to speak in the platitudes about duty and country.
Gets on his
It
soapbox.
got a little like nationalistic, like the Japanese national anthem
little.
starts to play in the background, and you're like,
Little. Yeah, so I guess this is like the moment I've been waiting to talk about, because like this was the most interesting is not the right word. I think it's the most worth examining. This is the point that's worth examining the most, because I kind of don't know how to feel about it, because on one hand, like, I understand what it means to be prideful in your country, like to defend it, to wear that on your sleeve. I have a Filipino flag in the background. Being Filipino means a lot to me. I am not native Filipino, I'm Filipino American, but when things happen in the motherland, when it happens in the country, and when I connect with other Filipino Americans, there's a very strong kinship, and I'm very proud of my identity. And if push comes to shove, like, I mean, not that there's going to be like a war or whatever. I don't know. Like, my heart is back with my motherland. That's who I am. I speak the language. Those are my people. And I will take that to the grave. So I understand the theme, the idea of, this is my country and I'm going to defend it to the death because I also have a vision for it. The thing is that this is a piece of history, and we know how history goes, to where, Japan was seen as weak, as behind, didn't have the technology that the West had. So there was this struggle, and this is kind of what the whole game is about, is a struggle to, like, how do we modernize? How do we insert ourselves into the rest of the world? And so while on one hand, I can kind of understand the speech that Ryoma gives, whether or not that, like, it's in character, and it makes sense in character, is kind of another discussion point. But as like the piece of the story of being like, okay, yes, this is what we're fighting for. We're fighting for the pride of Japan, and we're going to be one of the superpowers in the modern world. But we just have to work towards it. And I'm going to be the one to lead that. When you start to kind of piece that into history, it gets really ugly, because we all know what happens, like, afterwards, like the Meiji Restoration and Japanese imperialism, that this need and want to become powerful and to catch up with the rest of the world had manifested in imperialism, into oppression in other countries around Asia. And it was, and eventually, as we all understand, is kind of a piece of leading into World War II, and like the idea of Japan being like one of the superpowers and fighting for that in a way that is purely evil, That's in a way you look at what Ishin is about, and this is kind of the root of that. Of course, like they don't know that, like at least like in the context of the history, but it kind of was the progenitor of what led to Japanese imperialism and it being one of the Axis powers. And it's, I don't know, it leaves a weird taste in my mouth, kind of. But I do get the fact, like so many people are fascinated with this era of Japanese history too. And obviously like it's valid. I'm interested in it too. Like the samurai era is fascinating, but it is also like a very, fascistic type of government and way to live. So I don't know. It's I don't know.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's just kind of like if I am totally from the, Western American perspective or whatever, like if I was playing a game that took place during the same time period set in America, and at the end, this guy was like, "And America, you won't believe how good things are going to be from here on out," I would be like, and again, it's like, yeah, maybe at that time you could imagine someone making the speech, but we have seen how interested this game is in talking about modern day issues through the lens of its historical period. We've had the side missions where the guy won't leave his room because he likes his like drawings of anime girls, essentially. And we've had so many things where they are clearly like aware that we are in 2023 playing a game set, however many years ago. And so for that to happen, and then for Ryoma at the end to make this speech where he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna make some mistakes, but like, come on, man, Japan is gonna be really good." It's like I don't have the individual level discomfort that I would if someone was talking that way about like the US, but it did just. For everything that the game had been about, I did not really think that it was going to like swerve so hard into just kind of like jingoism.
Yeah. It was a little uncomfortable because like I said, we know how that went. I mean, like the Philippines was one of the victims of Japanese imperialism as well. So I'm just like, shit, damn, man, like, you really put me in a difficult position here, Ryoma Sakamoto.
Seeing that from like your perspective too, especially because of like the background you have, because I just saw it and I was like, and then they said, if we can't beat them, join them. And they went to like, they took everything the West had done to them to beat them down during this time period, to bully them, and they said, let's just kick around our neighbors for a bit until we feel better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a weird like bit of propaganda that I feel like is carried over from the original game too, where they like that's the reason I don't think they released it other places, because I thought first of all people wouldn't be interested, but also it's very like rah Japan in a way, and I think that's why they decided not to release it originally. So
yeah, it's and you could have those plot points. I'm not saying that like those plot points can't be effective, because they absolutely can. And if that's Ryoma Sakamoto's character, like that can be who he is, and that could be like another lens to view the rest of it. But I don't think the game does enough around the edges to contextualize having that kind of character. Rather, it just kind of leaves it at that and says,
yeah,
we're gonna be powerful, and then like, damn, that's it. All right, I've heard that before. Shit.
Like in a vacuum, it's kind of an interesting arc for his character, because he starts as someone who so clearly does not care about larger politics. He's like, the only thing I care about, finding my dad's killer. Like all of these other people with their big plans for the country, whatever. I just want to find this. And so for him then to end on like, it does matter to me what happens to Japan, is I think like an interesting arc. But that arc, then lands him in this place where it doesn't really feel like he's been for the rest of the game. You know, like the things that he cared about for politics in the middle doesn't seem exactly like what he's espousing here.
Right, yeah.
Thickeroni with cheese writes in, I feel like the game should have ended with a cut to credits right after Ryoma's declaration of brotherly love, with Takechi reaching out to take his hand. While Yodo had been mentioned a couple times, he never came across as the big bad, and you don't fight him. You just blather some weird Japanese nationalism sentiment until he gives up. Kind of a flubbed ending to an otherwise perfect, albeit tropey samurai story.
There's some stuff that happens in that cutscene that I think is cool. I like when all your bros come back and they have the line, "We'll all accompany you to hell," which is just like, yeah.
Yep. That shit was badass.
And then I also think another reason that it's weird that that Ryoma kills Izo is that this clearly seems like it's supposed to be his big moment where he kills someone. You know,
right.
like the game, he kind of raises his sword to execute him, and then it cuts to credits. And that's like, if that was the first time that he had killed someone in the game, it would be like, wow, look, he's really this time he thinks that that this is the answer, and it would be kind of an interesting statement. But instead we just get this weird game where he killed like 3 people, and which is less interesting than 1 or 0.
Yeah, for sure. It really does feel like it makes sense as like, oh, this is what it takes for him to feel like he should kill someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, unless you have anything else to say about that, we have the epilogue after the credits.
Yeah.
2 years later.
During the credits, there's kind of a gospel song that I thought kind of slapped.
Oh my god, yes! That was so out of place.
It's like this. I don't know why that decision was made, but I was like, that's kind of good.
And it was in English
it.
too. Like they ended on this like really nationalistic speech, and they were like, cut to English gospel song about the future, and I was like, weird. The energy we have created here, I don't know what we're doing.
Religious. It's a theme. In the epilogue, we see that the Akose, is that his name? The detective from other Yakuza games?
Nakauka. Oh, talking about Date?
Yeah, the Date
Nakauka
equivalent. Isn't it him who's
Nakauka.
writing the book about Ryoma?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cute. First off, cute.
Here's a question about these scenes, especially this first one. I thought I was watching an FMV for a second. Like there was something about the graphics in these scenes.
I think it was the color grading, huh?
It looked real. Like I thought, especially there's like a bottle of sake next to him, and I was just staring at it and I was like, is that a picture? Like, is that like a video? Because when they turned around and you saw their face, it was like, oh, these are the characters. But just something about like the lighting, and maybe because it was more modern than the rest of the game, so it seemed kind of unfamiliar. But like, I genuinely thought for a moment that I was watching like a filmed video ending.
Yeah, it was a little strange. I think it's also because like the juxtaposition between the character model, the sake, and then the background that he's looking out into a backyard, but the backyard looks like a really detailed JPEG. Like, I don't know. Yeah. It's like, this is a very high resolution JPEG in the background. It doesn't feel like they're in the same place necessarily, but I think this scene, this scene in particular, I thought this could have been a good moment for the game to reel it back in and provide that context I was talking about, that if you are going to have this sort of nationalistic parallel with Ryoma Sakamoto, who speaks in all these platitudes, having this scene could be an opportunity to kind of contextualize it and reel it back and say, like, okay, we understand that this piece of history isn't clean cut in the way that last battle said or like portrayed it to be. But instead, it was kind of like Kogoro walking around books, talking to the Takechi, who's sitting there having sake, like, man, it's been 2 years, huh? Yep, you really rebuilt Japan, huh?
And he's like wearing a suit too.
Yeah, he's wearing
so,
like a Western
it's all like
style
Western
suit.
all of a sudden.
Yeah,
like it's like they've embraced it. They've like modernized by Western standards, at least, I guess, which is, cool to see, but also like kind of sad in the same way.
Sure,
too,
yeah. It's like what you were fighting for kind of didn't matter. And
Because it
he's
was
like,
all like, yeah, get rid of the foreigners. And then they're like, so this is my suit. This is my collection of books. And I will now do an imperialism.
Yep, and it mentions the Meiji Restoration in passing also. And be like, yep, you really brought on the Meiji Restoration. Like, how do you know that? Like, it took a lot more than 2 years for that to kind of roll out. But yeah, it just kind of said, yep, that's history, huh?
It's very
Cool.
It's very funny. It has there's a joke in The Simpsons where they're like back in time and Grandpa Simpson says like, oh, they're all fighting World War I. And they're like, why do you keep calling it that? He's like, you'll see.
yeah, that's
It does kind of have the same vibe.
That's so funny. Yeah.
The other, the final note we get left with is Ryoma and Oreo got married, and they're off.
That was
seeing
so
the
weird.
world.
And then traveling Japan together. Like, okay, live your life, bestie.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely unexpected that they took that plot line that far. Just did not really see that coming.
Yeah. It feels like they were, that was their pitch for tourism. Like, look, you can bring your love of your life to the top of the beautiful mountains of Japan. I'm like, you know what? I actually do want to do that.
I mean, and I liked that as a place for him to end, because it did just seem like, you know what? After everything, he is not a guy who wants to be like famous or influential. Mm-hmm. He just kind of wants to be with people he cares about and like go to pretty places. And so I you know, if that is just where it had ended and we had cut out that whole scene at the end, I think I would have been a little more satisfied with it. Also, is panning up to the sky like a Yakuza ending thing? Is that like a theme? Because it definitely does that in 7, and I didn't know if that was like a thing that they all did.
I feel like it's definitely a trope. I don't know if like Yakuza can specifically claim it.
Yeah, I think
but I've looked at skies a lot.
Yeah. like a good like
that's
panning up the sky. Yep.
Finn.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it happens all the time in anime. It happens all the time in movies. So we know the vibes. But yeah, that's I don't know. I think I enjoyed that ending. Obviously, like I said, I have some problems with how it's framed and how it's packaged.
In this one, did they have the ending cutscene of the statue, or was that the original?
The statue?
Because in the original, there's like an additional ending where it cuts to a statue of Sakamoto Ryoma that actually exists.
Oh, no.
And it's a father and his son. And like the dad's asking like what his son wants to be when he grows up. And they took that out.
Okay.
Which I think it was just kind of like furthering kind of like, you know, it was something, you know, about the samurai spirit essentially lives on in like modern day Japan. Blah, 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 blah. But weird that they took it out.
There's a really interesting academic article that I did not read all of, but is linked to in the Polygon review of this game.
Yep.
And the article is called "Popular Realms of Memory in Japan: The Case of Sakamoto Ryoma," and essentially what it's saying is like there's really not a lot known about this guy. And yet he is so popular in pop culture as like a historical figure that like a lot of different kind of people with a lot of different political perspectives have kind of like claimed him or grabbed onto the idea of Sakamoto Ryoma as like, you know, someone from history that they like. And so it is, you know, like I think if I was more immersed in that culture, you know, if I had like grown up hearing about Sakamoto Ryoma in the same way that you heard about like, I don't know,
Ben Franklin.
Just like kind of historical but mostly mythical characters from American history, you know, it would be very interesting to see like how my perspective on what they had done with him differed.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of, at least in modern sense, there's a lot of icons that people just kind of latch onto just because of like, it almost feels like word of mouth. Like in the Philippines, we have like Lapu Lapu, who like no one really has any historical record of who he was, but we understand him to be a revolutionary who fought and killed thousands of Spanish colonizers back in the day in like the 17 or the 1500s. Damn, I think 1500s.
Yeah, Japan really likes their historical figures a lot, like Nobunaga, Tokugawa. They're revered, sort of how we revere the founding fathers, but they're not careful with them necessarily, because like I would never play like an Ishin Founding Fathers edition, you know, where like Benjamin Franklin, you know, Thomas Jefferson, they're all like hanging out together.
Hey, Bioshock Infinite turned 10 yesterday.
True.
Assassin's Creed 3.
I did play an Otome game about the Shinsengumi where you get to date each member of the Shinsengumi.
Oh, God.
And I just want to
funny.
say there were vampires and demons, but somehow it was more historically accurate than this game was.
Damn.
Like, I'm not kidding you. Like, it was more historically accurate. So yeah, Japan's not... They're not like sticklers that you can flub a little bit and you can like change the historical. Like, it's more like a name and like maybe the person. But yeah, they're not as careful with their like myths and legends as I feel like we are here, because I think we're still so young of a country.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know. I did see a movie called Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter
That's
once.
true.
So
Shit was
But
sick.
I haven't seen like date Abraham Lincoln like the game or like date we haven't started thirsting after them yet. So we haven't hit that yet.
We don't have
But let me know, because that's kind of like the level
game.
of like where are we in our reverence.
Yeah.
I think we found the next games for Steam's secret stash. Sorry, Cream of the Steam. It's the founding father dating simulators.
I was trying to explain the Cream of the Steam to someone the other day, and I could not summon what the show was actually called for 90% of its run. It was only Cream of the
Steam Secret Stash?
I couldn't even remember Steam.
You don't
Secret
have to worry about that anymore. We officially changed the name to Cream of the Steam.
Thank God.
That's not a problem that you need to worry about anymore.
It's been optimized.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Anything else to address that we haven't gotten to yet?
Like I said, I just want to kind of shout out. So the review Jacob mentioned is Kazuma Hashimoto from Polygon, who wrote it for Polygon. I think like his perspective, I think following his work has kind of helped me kind of understand Japanese like history in the context of the modern day a little bit more. I think that's really important, and it kind of shows through in the review that is on Polygon. And it's kind of helped me kind of understand and come to terms with some of the things that were glorified growing up. Because like growing up, we love, samurai movies, and like we grew up watching anime, Japanese film, playing video games, and so kind of growing up and understanding the context of that history is really important, and it's part of understanding who I am and where I came from. And so people who might play Yakuza Like a Dragon, or like not Yakuza, yeah, go ahead and play Yakuza Like a Dragon. That game is fire. But who play Like a Dragon Ishin and come away from it and be like, oh, that was history. Like, it's a lot more complicated than that. Yes, it's a great game. I love Like a Dragon Ishin. It's one of my favorite games I've played this year. But I think that if anything, it should lead people, like if you come away with that interested in the actual historical context, I would encourage people to seek out actual history of that period and criticisms and critiques of that history, because it's a lot more complicated than, whoa, cool samurai who have a code of honor and things like that. It's some of the things that maybe you come away with feeling when you play Ghost of Tsushima, for example, where that's kind of all there is to it. I mean, I don't want to like paint that game in broad strokes because that's not what we're here to talk about. But I think people should understand at least that though that era of Japanese history is very complicated, that led to a much more complicated history after that. And, it's important to understand those things, I think.
Definitely. Yeah, everybody else come away positive on the game overall?
I think it was positive. I think comparing it to other Yakuza games, I've enjoyed other ones more, and I feel like what this one had going for it was the historical context. But in terms of like side quests and like mini games, there's definitely other games that were better, but I like that this one was kind of like a one shot. Like the story was all in one, everything was all in one. I wish it was more historically accurate. At the end, it kind of went off the rails a little bit. They were like, we cared so much about history, but Yoma and the boys, everybody, like, please clap at the end, and you were like, what is happening? There was a war, and you guys just skipped it?
Yeah,
I think, I think there's a version of this game that's a little more focused that I would think would be like the hypest game ever, but I also
homemade game.
I understand that, it's like that's a focused game is not necessarily the Yakuza style. There is a point around chapter 11 where the number of twists and different kind of groups in the story kind of started my head spinning. But like the highs of this game are undeniable. Like the peaks of the story are so good. The production value is so good. Like all of the actors are just knocking it out of the park. And so seeing those moments really feels like you're kind of seeing a high watermark for this kind of storytelling.
And the sense of place is so great. It's definitely, when I was rushing was when I enjoyed it the least, when I wasn't like really taking my time and doing my little errands and stuff on the way from objective to objective. Like when you're really engaging with everything it's trying to give you, that's when it really sings.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel all y'all on that RGG does what they do best, and this is another example of that. And there are ways in which you could see that this was a PS3 era game, and there's still a lot of that uncanny valley type stuff, but I think that the way in which they've improved it to align it with the rest of the modern Yakuza games is, again, there's some highs with that, like some of the fights, the transitions, the choreography. Of course, like that stuff was in there in the previous one, but the way in which they've upped that with the fidelity and what we've come to understand Yakuza as, because including myself, a lot of us have started way after Ishin had come out. Like 0 was my start. I went through all the way up through 6, and then with Like a Dragon, aka 7. So going back to this, I'm like, damn, they really had it the whole time. They had the chops. We just wasn't looking. So to see that come to light with a new release was like, they still got it. And it's just a nice change of pace, because like I can't wait to go back to Kamurocho. I can't wait to go back to Yokohama. I want to see those places again. I want to see more stories even after we've had how many games in those places. But for now, like, let's take you back to a piece of history. And as complicated as that history is, I think I walk around like Edo period Japan. I look around. This is kind of wild that we have this digital recreation with a lot of liberties, but visually and just like this like a sense of place, like y'all had mentioned, is so strong that wow, this is kind of cool. Like we have Ghost of Tsushima, but it's a very specific type of game. And like we have other games that take place in this era, but one that gives you room to be a part of how that city is living, which Yakuza always does. And now that they offer that foundation to a completely different point in time is it's really cool. I really like it, and I still think this is a great game.
Yeah, those dense cities that feel really full of life. It's so great to see that in like a totally different era, totally different context, but with the same level of quality. Yeah. That will do it for our Like a Dragon Ishin Deepest Dive. What a long, strange trip it's been. Oh, I had a blast.
It's over.
Reminder.
See you all for Gaiden. That's right.
Ooh, yeah, let's go.
Resident Evil 4 Deepest Dive is going on right now. The first episode just went up, so if you can feel free to hop right to that. And once again, patrons at the $5 tier get access to the audio version, the audio feed of that and this, and much more. Michael Hyam, one last time, what do you got going on? What were you recording with Kind of Funny right before this?
Ooh, I can't say, actually. Some embargo information, but you will see it up on Kind of Funny very soon. That's going to be a Kind of Funny Games cast. Y'all will find out in a couple hours in the next day, if you will. But yeah, you can find me and all of my stuff at Michael P. Hyam on Twitter for as long as that platform exists, or for as long as we as people want to exist on that platform.
Are you going to be on the For You page? Are you gonna pay to be on the For You page?
I am. If I'm destined, I'm not going to be on it. But if I end up on it, like if y'all see me on your For You page, you know what it is, man. That's not up to me, but it says I'm for y'all. So I got hot content rolling out. But yeah, I got some things going up on GameSpot.com. I have some things up on IGN, Polygon, KF, as I had mentioned. So yeah, I'm out here still doing my thing.
Right on. Jacob?
I'm Jacob Geller on YouTube. You can watch my little videos there. And I'm also doing a podcast called Something Rotten with Blake Hester, where we talk about violent and nihilistic games. We are wrapping up the Darkness series, the Darkness 2, unbelievably good game. And the next series that we're going on to will be of interest to people, so stay tuned.
Do you get people a lot of times playing a nasty little game and they hit you up and say you should talk about this nasty little game on your Rotten show?
The one that we're covering next has actually been a surprisingly frequent request. They're usually nasty big games. It's not really an indie game show. So it's like, what's the last big AAA game you played where you were like, gross?
This is a little nasty.
And Sarah, who are you?
I'm Sarah. You can find me on my Twitch channel at SarahPods. We streamed all of Ishin there, and now we are streaming the Resident Evil 4 remake.
Nice. So if you don't want to even play these games, just
you didn't have to play.
That's fantastic. And I'm Leo Vader. I will find you. Don't worry about it. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a great day.
Peace.
Good job hosting, Leo. Thanks for hosting.
Thank you.
Give it up for Leo Vader. Hey.
Support.
If you are sick of snark, clickbait, and an avalanche of movie news, you can help support independent games media by subscribing to MinnMax's YouTube channel here or checking out the benefits over on Patreon. It's a nice, clean handshake. You support us, and we won't make dumb, condescending stuff for you. Your support helps us continue our mission of focusing on games, friends, and getting better. Patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. We'd appreciate it.